Welcome back to Utility Sports. Today's live stream is going to be a lot of fun. We've got a huge announcement that talks about the future of the channel here and all of the content that we're going to be covering. We've got a few changes that are going to be super exciting. I think you guys are going to really like them. Austin, how excited are you for the announcement yourself?
I'm really excited for the next gen of Utility Sports. This is a big move for us. I know we got a lot of people that have been supporting us since the early stages of the channel. I'm really excited to show what we have and maybe talk about the future direction of this channel.
I am so stoked as well. If you guys are new in here, make sure to hit that like button, also subscribe. And right now, while we're waiting for everyone else to file in here, go ahead, comment your favorite NBA team. We are going to be talking about the NBA draft today as well, following the announcements. So again, we're going to do some announcing of some really important stuff here on the channel. And then from there, we're going to talk about the NBA draft, some of your favorite prospects, your favorite team. And right now, we can already tell we got a Pistons fan in here. Jack says, as a Pistons fan, I hope this is about the Jaden Ivey rumors, how he told the Kings he doesn't want to be drafted by them, and he loves Detroit as a destination. We're going to definitely talk about those rumors later. Grizzly Pod, welcome to the stream as well. Shaden Sharp's going to end up the best player in the draft, so we've already got some hot takes in here as well. We're super excited for everything. Showing some love here. Thank you all so much for hopping into the live stream today. We are so excited about everything going on here with Utility Sports, not only the NBA draft coverage, which is going to become a year-long segment on the channel. I've already been prepping for 2023, guys, so I'm sure you're excited for that. I've got a lot of notes written down, and I'm already working on my first mock draft. Obviously, the actual draft on the 23rd could throw some things into a spiral, though, so I'll have to be a little flexible with that. Welcome, everyone, to the stream. Seeing some names in here that I've seen before. Mary, welcome to the stream again. Glad to have everybody in here. Austin, I'm just so thankful for all these people. I know you are as well. All the awesome viewers that we have. Share some of your favorite, thoughts on kind of the community we've built up here.
I think we've done a really nice job establishing an NBA community, and that has really picked up more so this spring, heading into the early parts of the summer. You guys have absolutely shown out with the videos, so a lot of credit to you. I think we do a really good job collaborating with some of our fans and people that just love basketball, and you guys are really good about talking amongst yourselves as well. So I think we've really built something, and we want to continue to do that as well for not only just basketball but our other sports. We also want to be big on some of the other platforms. So right now, I encourage you to check out the links in this video. We want you to be a part of our TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. It doesn't matter. We'd like you to join some of the other platforms so we can kind of collaborate on there. And then you get a different style of content as well, not just the YouTube videos, but other different kinds of videos. TikTok will be much more active in the next coming weeks, so stay tuned for that one.
Yeah, all the links to those are in the description. We're going to give you a second here right now. Go give us a follow on all of those. We're going to shout you out live on stream here if I see a Twitter follow pop up. So go ahead and go.
Yes, Instagram and Twitter, we will be shouting you out on there.
Jacob, welcome to the stream. Glad to have you in here. On Handy Train, does Dorton 12 for 7 make sense? We'll discuss that later. Keep that question in the back of your pocket. We'll bring it out after the announcement. Pistons and Four says, John, glad to have you in here, John. And Mike says, good job, guys. Thank you for all the love and support. You guys are all so awesome. And honestly, this is kind of the whole point of the announcement here. It's us, but not just us. I think, honestly, Austin, we've put a lot of work in, but the channel wouldn't be so special without all of our awesome viewers who tune into the videos every day, leave such awesome comments like the ones we're seeing right now. And it's a huge testament to not only the amount of work we've put in, but the amount of time you guys have spent watching our channel, leaving some positivity, sharing your basketball thoughts, your football thoughts, all across all of our videos on the channel. And like I said, it's us, but not just us, which is going to lead us into our announcement here, Austin. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
So this is going to be up on the screen now, and you guys are going to recognize this logo from our YouTube channel, right? This is what we've been rocking with for quite some time, since the beginning of our channel, over a year and a half ago. It's crazy that much time has already passed, but we are making a slight change, and it's going to be built on the idea of us, but not just us, which I'm really excited about. So we're going to go ahead and put the new logo, brand new logo, just announced now. All of you will be live here seeing it for the first time, and it's a great one. It's really, really awesome. And here it is, guys, on screen now. There it is. The brand new Utility Sports logo. I am so excited to be sharing it. Shout out to Jack, CHR2005 for following on Twitter, and Unhandy Train. Thank you guys so much. Like I said, shout outs there. But here is the new logo. Give us your thoughts in the comments section right now. We're getting some W logo, and there it is, the play on us, Utility Sports. It's really all about us here, the whole community. Austin, how much do you love the new logo?
Oh, it's phenomenal. I love the shield. I love the glow of it, the 3D look as well. Obviously, the U and the S, and being able to play it on that with such a strong community. So thanks, guys, for all the support. And Sheldon, I think it'd be a great idea to talk about the creation of this logo.
Yeah, this was actually created by Pixel Witch, someone who had reached out to us, watches our videos, reached out to us on Twitter with the idea of giving us some different type of looks. And we've worked with this user before. They've created some of our intro videos, that intro into some of our videos on the channel. Pixel Witch is phenomenal. The link to their Twitter is in the bio as well. I highly recommend going and giving them a follow. Shout out to Mike G, by the way, for giving us a follow on Twitter just now. Huge thank you to you. But please go give Pixel Witch a follow. Go share some love with them in the DMs. Go share some love with them via Twitter. Whatever you got to do, let them know how much you appreciate them for this awesome work. I mean, just look at how awesome that logo is. Absolutely killed it. Like Brady's here saying, Heat W logo with some fire emojis. Absolutely love that. I'm just so happy with how the logo came out. But that's not the only announcement, Austin. We've got some other stuff on here, including a brand new intro video and a brand new banner, Austin. What should they see next? What do you want to go with?
Well, let's go with the intro video. I think it's great.
Let's go ahead and go get the intro video. Last look here at the new logo for just one more second. Shout out to Huzini22, by the way, for giving us a follow on Twitter. Make sure you guys all go give us a follow on Twitter as well. And now here we go. Let's go ahead and get the brand new intro video up on screen for everyone. I'm super excited. It's fairly similar to the last one, but there's a slight change and a little bit of an alteration to the soundbite. So I'm going to go ahead and mute the music here to the stream real quick so that everyone can hear it. Let's go ahead and get this muted off right now. And we're going to play it here in 3, 2, 1. So there it is, the brand new intro video. Again, I love it so much. Pixel Witch did such a great job on this as well. Obviously incorporates the brand new logo into the intro. A lot of people really loving the new stuff. So that's a testament to Pixel Witch. And again, thank you all so much for all the love and support. It's been so fun having all of your guys' love and support. We've been getting some love. So you like this comment here from ZT?
Yeah, that's a great tier 1 comment for sure. So something else to add on to this, with everybody that's starting to follow on Twitter, let's be active. Let's be active in the private messages. Would love to hear some of your guys' thoughts. Love to talk to you guys about it. Maybe at some point we get a group chat going with all of our people that follow, and I think it'd be really worthwhile, and really establishing a true community for sure. Love having you guys around. I love the new direction of the channel is super exciting. Love the new branding, new energy, and we're gonna keep growing this thing for sure.
Right. Paulo, don't worry. We will get that old intro song still into some videos. Don't worry. We'll bring it back down the road. So do not worry about missing out on that. And we'll be using both intros. So don't worry. This new one is going to get infused as well into some, but we're going to be utilizing both. I've got them all saved as files. So they'll be appearing all over the place. Don't worry about it. They'll be around. Hopefully you guys are excited. I love this comment still. I have to go back to it about the Pistons logo. And like Austin was saying, real quick, shout out to Amax Bias and also Must See DC for giving us follows on Twitter. If you guys do DM us, even though we're growing, we're not changing who we are. We're going to keep responding to DMs, looking at everything you guys tag us in. If you tweet at us, we're going to see it and reply. Just please keep interacting with us. We love the community that we've built here, which now leads us into the final thing here, Austin. We've got the awesome new banner that will appear on both Twitter and on the actual YouTube channel itself. So let's go ahead and get that up on screen here now. We're going to debut it here in 3, 2, 1. the brand new banner. Austin, what's your thoughts on it?
Oh, it's phenomenal. Phenomenal. I love the logo, the incorporation of utility sports alongside of that. Once again, putting the us in front of that is just phenomenal. And obviously the design at the bottom half of the logo is terrific. So I think it really embodies who we are, and we're bold and we're not afraid to show it. So I love that banner overall. I think it's phenomenal. Thanks again, guys, for jumping in here to take a look at it. I think it's wise now to kind of transition into talking about more so the NBA content you came here for. Now, I'm going to be prompting Sheldon with a lot of draft stuff, and I'm going to bombard him. So let's get ready for that. We're going to ask him some questions, and we'll open it up for a little bit of a mailbag towards the end here, and then you guys can kind of ask some of your questions to the Wizard. So let's go ahead. Let's get that process going here. So now we're going to play 20 questions with you, all NBA draft related. Okay. Now, my first one is, which of these prospects do you feel is going to be the safest prospect in the entire draft? Which is one of the guys that can't miss?
Out of the entire class, there's a few guys that I think are can't miss. Jabari Smith, I think, is relatively safe, even though, the cost is going to be high. He's going to be a top 2 overall pick. When you look at him, he's going to play perfectly into a role, which is not something you typically want from a top 2 selection, but he's got everything you need him to be in terms of being an elite 3-and-D player. He shoots very well, both contested and open, and he's also someone who offers elite length, can defend out on the perimeter, moves his feet really well, but also can break down, contest inside. He's going to be a solid rim protector as well. In the weak side variety, he's not going to be an anchor by any stretch. But ultimately, I think Jabari Smith is safe. I think Paolo Banchero is also pretty safe, because you look at his ability to score the basketball. Every single team in the league could use another guy who can put the ball in the hole. And Paolo Banchero does that, which is partially why these guys at the top of the NBA draft are at the top. They're safer. They're going to be more consistent, a little bit more reliable. And then we get into some of the other fun ones who are maybe a little bit less safe and reliable, but definitely still some intriguing prospects outside of that. I think that's a great question, Austin.
Yeah, so I definitely think you're on the right track with that one. Now, kind of jumping to the next one here. So just some of the people know, some of the people don't. Who's the best player in this class right now on your big board? Some people may have seen your big boards over the last couple of weeks, but for those who haven't, break it down.
That's Jaden Ivey, my man out of Purdue. I love when players come back after their freshman season and make a huge stride in their sophomore year. Jaden Ivey is the perfect example of this. Very similar to a guy named Ja Morant. We saw him do that as well at Murray State from his freshman to sophomore season, took a massive step forward. Jaden Ivey just did the same thing with Boilermaker basketball this past year. And when you look at Jaden Ivey, he is everything that you realistically want to have in a guard leading your team. He's fast, dynamic, has one of the quickest slow to fast bursts that any player in the NBA is going to have. He is incredibly quick with the ball. And it's not just his athleticism. He's got really great footwork. He's able to manipulate defenders, get to his spots. He's very good in up and under situations, but he's still got the athleticism to plow it down on you if he needs to and blow by you when he wants to. That's one of those combinations that if you have that and you have the ability to beat anybody you want to the rim at any given moment, that's what's made players like James Harden stars in the past, and Kyrie Irving and LeBron James and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Jaden Ivey has that element to him. Now, if he can come along a little bit further with the playmaking, I think that's really the biggest question right now. In an open floor, what can he do? We didn't get to see that very much at Purdue, playing next to Travion Williams, a back-to-the-basket big, and Zach Edey, a 7'3" guy whose mobility was rather limited and doesn't really shoot the basketball. The floor wasn't open at Purdue, and he still shined. He's good as a cutter, and I think if you open the floor for him, put shooting around him, an athletic big man who can catch lobs, in the screen and roll game, something he hasn't had since playing for USA U19 basketball when he dominated there as well. He's going to take a huge step forward and really shine at the NBA level. I'm buying heavily into him, and as long as the Sacramento Kings don't take him, we're getting to where we need to go with him.
Yes, I know you've been heavily against the whole Jaden Ivey not to the Kings. So let's speak a little bit on that. What do you think are a couple of reasons why he would really struggle in Sacramento?
It's not as much as him even struggling. I just think that when you look at Sacramento, and I made a video on this, and I think, maybe I didn't clarify exactly what I wanted to say in that as much. I think Jaden Ivey is going to be good wherever he goes. I think he's going to be a good player that's going to help any single team that drafts him. But with him being number one on my board, the reason he's first for me is because I look at the long-term potential of him being a lead guard. You put the ball in his hands and let everyone else fall in line off of that. The issue with Sacramento, they are going to force De'Aaron Fox. We've already seen that take effect to Tyrese Halliburton, who's now playing basketball in Indiana. Domantas Sabonis, they're going to want the guy they traded Halliburton for to have a huge role in this team. And both of those two guys are very good NBA players. The issue here for Ivy is it relegates him back to the role that we kind of saw at Purdue, which is an effective role for him. He can cut off the basketball. He can knock down big shots. He can play as a combo guard off the ball if you need him to be. I think Sacramento gets better taking him. I just think it limits what you're going to see from Ivy long term, because for me, again, Ivy's going to be best with the ball in his hands and shooting around him, and those are things that Sacramento is just not going to offer to him.
Yeah, that's a really tough situation, him stepping into Sacramento. I do think that's going to limit his ceiling for sure. And now we're going to kind of get to some of the players that aren't as well known. So if there's one prospect that these people that are currently watching our video, this is a guy they need to go and watch the highlights of as soon as they're done watching this video. Who is a guy that's really exciting to watch that they should be aware of that very well could be a stud at the next level?
There's a few guys. One player who's maybe not going to be a star, but I think is going to be a really safe addition for a team that needs to add talent to their roster, specifically on the wing. Ron Harper Jr. I'm telling you right now, he is a massive sleeper in this year's draft. I've seen other people rank him as low as 73. I don't get it. I have him in the top 20 on my board. He was the best player for Rutgers this past year. And when he ends up becoming an impactful player like what we saw from Herb Jones, people are going to say, wow, I wish we had a Ron Harper Jr. And your team probably passed on him twice on draft night. He probably goes in the second round. I was hoping all year long he would go in the first round. He hasn't probably lived up to that at this point, but I think he's going to be a steal for a team. Ron Harper Jr. is going to be a phenomenal addition. Another player who I think is going to be a really nice pickup for a team is Jeremy Sohan. And he's similar to Ron Harper Jr. in a lot of ways. Both of them bigger frames, good defensive players. And Sohan, unlike Harper, who's going to be more of a perimeter defensive guy, Sohan's going to be really good in a lot of different areas, specifically defensively with his ability to drop. He's good at fronting bigs. You can play him as a 4, use him as a small ball 5. He can push the ball in transition. He's going to do a lot of the little things right that help teams win basketball games. So even when he's averaging 7 points a night, people are going to overlook him because stat sheet warriors do that. But Jeremy Sohan is going to be an impactful player when it comes to actually winning meaningful NBA games. I know the fun comparison for him is Draymond Green. He won't be that. No one's going to be Draymond Green. Draymond's a Hall of Fame level player, but I think Sohan's going to fall in line and be a really nice player in his own right.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of one other thing for our comments section, with the questions that are going to be coming in here, we want you to go ahead and go on Twitter and message us, because I will take the messages and the questions for the mailbag and I will present them to Sheldon. So go ahead and DM us on Twitter your questions and I will present them to Sheldon towards the end of the show. So I think that's something that we want to do here. Want to increase the engagement on Twitter. If you are new to the stream, make sure you go follow that Twitter of our Twitter account that we have in the bio of this video. Also check out that TikTok, man. That's going to keep growing. We're going to keep producing videos on there. So make sure that you follow along. And so we're going to continue with our NBA draft coverage. Now, we're a week away from the draft. There's a lot of unknowns. Now, if there's a player that you find to be flying under the radar that could get drafted way higher than people think, what comes to mind?
Well, Jalen Williams was that guy. He's someone who's really helped his stock in the past couple of weeks and months here with the NBA Draft Combine specifically. He really helped himself with a good showing there. But I think he's starting to be on the radar of a lot of other people. One guy I think that is still flying under the radar a little bit, Jake LaRavia from Wake Forest. He's an intriguing player because he's a little bit bigger, probably suits in best as a power forward in today's modern NBA, but he's able to put the ball on the deck to a certain extent. You can run some offense through him as a scorer, and he can also play make to a certain extent for others. Do I think he's ever going to be a star level player? No, but I think he's a player who is going to be able to fit along other good players and really help be an offensive connector piece. We saw how important Derek White was for Boston this past year when they traded for him. Everything started to change. That team really started to click. The ball movement really improved. I think LaRavia can have a similar impact on a team, probably to a lesser extent early on, but he's a nice pickup. He's a little bit older, so he'd probably be there around pick 20 to 35. Anywhere in there, I could see him going. I think he's going to be a nice pickup for whatever team grabs him.
So kind of looking at another player potentially, I want you to highlight a guy that is going to be way overdrafted versus where their talent level is. Who's a guy that you think that NBA executives are way higher on than they should be? And, what's that impact look like at the next level? Where are they going to struggle?
This is going to be a little controversial. I know a lot of the viewers here aren't going to love it. Dyson Daniels, G League Ignite. I think he's a good prospect. I think there's a lot to like about him. But the issue is he ever going to be a starting level point guard? And if you're taking a player in the top 10 where I expect him to go, or at least in the lottery, the hope is at some point that guy's a starting level point guard. I just don't quite see it for Dyson Daniels myself. I get way too many Frank Ntilikina vibes. Not that he'll be the same player. I think he's going to be more impactful defensively because he's a little bit bigger. I think he's a smarter player than Ntilikina, probably a little bit more impactful as a passer. But, the hope is that he's a Marcus Smart type guy, and I just don't see that for him. I think that, for me, Dyson Daniels isn't going to live up to some of the hope here. And the biggest issue with him is offensively, not only just the fact that he doesn't shoot the three ball super well right now, but he's also not really in control of the basketball as well as he needs to be a lead point guard. You see him really rely on his body a lot in order to maintain possession of the basketball when handling it against pressure. And then also offensively, if you're a point guard, your go-to move can't be a post up. It's just not the reality unless you're Darren Williams, who also had the deadliest crossover in the 2000s. You're not going to get the job done that way, especially in today's NBA. I just don't think Dyson Daniels is as good as everyone says. I think he's a good player. I think Dyson Daniels can be impactful in the league, but a lottery selection seems a little rich to me.
So I'm going to go ahead and open it up for some of the Twitter questions that have come in from some of our fans here. We have Jack asking, if the Pacers were to trade up and select Ivy, how would you feel about the fit with Tyrese Halliburton and also Jaden Ivey?
See, I think those two can fit together really well because Halliburton is one of those unique guards that I didn't think that Sacramento needed to move away from him. You look at Sacramento, after they got Sabonis, they started losing more. Yes, Sacramento struggled, but ultimately here for me, when you guys are looking at, Halliburton's fit with Ivy can have the ball. Halliburton can work off of that, or you could run it the other way around, and that's where you utilize some of Ivy's cutting potential while still not taking the ball out of his hands fully like you would see in Sacramento if they had Fox and Sabonis, because those two guys are both ball-dominant players who would like to have the ball in their hands. Halliburton, he's more of a connecting offensive player himself, but at a higher level than a guy like Derek White because he's able to knock down shots and play at a really high rate. Nick, we can see your comments, by the way. So we are just planning on working through some of these in a different way. We have not talked about Johnny Davis yet to Cleveland.
Yeah. So another question coming in from Cole is, what does the perfect draft night look like for the Charlotte Hornets? Now, I think that's a very, very interesting question considering their 2 first-round picks. Sheldon, I know you like what they can do here with those selections. So what's the perfect scenario for them?
For that team, when you're looking at the Hornets, I think it's all about building a defensive identity. Whether that means you're trading for Jakob Poeltl on draft night, which I think I'm higher on than most. Jakob Poeltl is a very underrated player in the league, and he would be a really nice addition for a roster because of how well he holds down the paint. And I think if you're looking at how to build around LaMelo Ball and Miles Bridges, you need some serious front court defensive additions. Jakob Poeltl is at the top of my list for that, but let's say they stay at 13 and they stay at 15. Maybe Mark Williams falls to them. That would be a big time pickup, and I really put the emphasis there on big. 7'2", 9'9" standing reach. You can't go wrong with those measurements added to your roster. And he's able to protect the rim. He moves pretty well laterally and downhill. He would be a phenomenal addition to that roster. Otherwise, Jeremy Sohan, who we talked a little bit about earlier, that defensive intelligence and IQ would be huge. Tari Eason, if we want to go with a little bit more of a physical mold, someone who you probably feel him as like a low-key enforcer. Not that he's going to get in fights, but you don't want to battle with Tari Eason. He's so big and strong. And I think, honestly, Charlotte's in a really great spot. They could even go with a guy like Ochai Agbaji, who is probably one of the more NBA-ready players in this class, simply because he's coming off national title with Kansas and has a lot of college experience. He's ready to make the jump to the NBA. He could fit pretty well off the wing. I'm really interested to see what they do with Gordon Hayward on draft night.
Another question we have here from Amex Bias. I want the Rockets to trade and package Tate and pick 17 and 26 to try to move into the lottery. What are your thoughts on that potential move?
That's definitely an interesting one to hear. I mean, the one that jumps out to me would maybe be, say, Portland. Portland hired Mike Schmitz, who obviously is really world-renowned when it comes to draft analysis. And you would feel like he would be in the assistant GM role having a big impact on their draft night decisions, which is why they would feel confident moving down to 17 and 26 because of how deep he understands the class. I feel like, he's one of the better evaluators when it comes to talent. So for me, if Portland's willing to move back from 7, that's Houston's jump opportunity. And there's also been reports that Washington maybe wants to move out of 10. If you can jump up to 7 or 10 in your Houston, you feel really good about yourself. I know a lot of Rockets fans got ragged on from the Christian Wood trade yesterday. And while I do think the Mavericks won that deal, if they can turn around, swing 26 with 17 and get back up into the top 10, it rights all the wrongs there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to continue to wait for some of those questions to come in. I do believe we have one more here, and then we can go ahead and continue the discussion. What does the Wizards trade for number 4 look like, in your opinion?
So Wizards trying to move up to number 4, that's going to be a tough bill to fit because you're going to have to really try and talk Sacramento into moving down 6 spots in a class where there's a perceived top 4 players. That's going to be a tough ask to do. You obviously have to start with pick 10 going out the door. You're probably going to have to include a combination of Corey Kispert, Denny Avdia, and then you probably have to throw in future first-round picks with that as well. That is a tough bill to ask. Again, Sacramento could use some wings. So can you sell them on maybe Kentavious Caldwell-Pope in there? But then you also have to get into the habit of matching money, which is going to be difficult here because Sacramento is not just going to throw in Harrison Barnes for money matching purposes. They value Harrison Barnes, as does most of the league. So it becomes a really difficult ask for Washington to move up to 4. Honestly, if I had to bet, I would bet against Washington being able to move up into the top 4. I was pulling for them on on the night of the lottery. Unfortunately, though, they did not move up. They find themselves at 10, but it's not a terrible spot. There's going to be guys like Johnny Davis there. I think Dyson Daniels, I just ragged on him a little bit earlier, but he's in a really good situation if he goes to Washington where he doesn't have to be the offense. They've got Porzingis, Kuzma, Beal there, assuming he sticks around in free agency, which we've got a video coming out on that tomorrow. There's a lot of different outcomes here for Washington that I still think are good, positive outcomes, even if it means they don't trade up to number 4.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're 100% right on that. And a player that I do want to transition to, huge topic of discussion, Patrick Baldwin Jr. from Milwaukee. Now, he went to go play for his dad, obviously against lesser competition at Milwaukee, but what are your thoughts on his ceiling, what you think he'll actually be, and then, what's kind of the worst case nuclear level of, potential outcome?
Well, worst case, Patrick Baldwin's not in the league in 3 years. That's, I think, kind of the reality. Patrick Baldwin is a player who, yes, he was a very high school recruit. A lot of people were excited for him. He's a bigger player who can knock down perimeter shots. We haven't seen that for over 2 years. I watched a lot of the USA U19 World Cup. Team USA won gold. Patrick Baldwin was at best the 9th best player on that roster. And there's a lot of players that have passed him since then, in my own estimation. And to be honest, on the USA U19 team, he looked terrible. There's players in college right now who didn't get a ton of play time. Looking at a guy like Caleb First for Purdue, wasn't healthy as much in college, didn't get to play as much behind Travion Williams and Zach Edey there. He was way better than Patrick Baldwin for USA U19. If I was drafting this year, I would take Caleb First way before Patrick Baldwin. And honestly, I think Patrick Baldwin needs to be a second-round selection. If he goes in the first round, it's a huge bust. That's a wasted pick for a team. He shot 26% from 3 this past year for Milwaukee, playing again against lesser competition. He averaged about 12 points a game. The expectations with him going there playing for his father was to rebuild some of that stock up, average about 17, 18 points a game, shoot the ball really well from the field against lower competition. He did none of those things. Right now, I'm just telling you, he moves like he's got a rod in his back. He's not mobile. He's not a flexible player in terms of positions you can play him at. You're putting him out there, and the comp for him honestly is going to be Davis Bertans, which for anyone who's been watching the channel knows I'm not high on Davis Bertans. I do not see Patrick Baldwin being a good player in the NBA. Now, I hope I'm wrong. I don't want any of these players to not succeed, but when it comes down to my actual evaluation, I do not think Baldwin is going to be a good NBA player.
I know that's the player that a lot of people love, but we're going to jump to maybe everybody's favorite, or not, I shouldn't say everybody, but more specifically, let's talk about Kai Sotto, a guy that very well could go in that early part of the second round, maybe middle second round, maybe even sneak into the end of the first because of his measurables and potential upside. What is your overall thoughts on Kai Sotto? Where do you kind of see him ending up in terms of where he's selected, and what's kind of the ceiling for him?
I would be shocked if Kai Sotto isn't drafted specifically because of the money. The moment a team drafts him, you're going to sell more jerseys than maybe the guy who goes first overall. That is how popular and notoriety and how much notoriety you're going to gain by drafting Kai Sotto, because everyone in the Philippines loves him because that's their guy, right? And you got to respect them for that. They are showing love to their own person. They're showing love to their own guy, and that's awesome. I think he's going to be a second round selection, and I don't even think that's unwarranted. You look at the potential here. He's a 7'3" player who's a comfortable passer. He's ambidextrous, shoots the ball with his left hand, but more than capable putting it on the deck with his right. The lateral mobility is going to be the question. That's going to be the same old story that we see with every 7'3" guy. How well do they move out in space? And the answer to that's usually not good, which is what's limiting him from being a first round player. And that's what makes a guy like Chet Holmgren so special, because he's around 7'1". And Mark Williams is so special because he's 7'2", and those two players just move so much better laterally and downhill than Kai Sotto. I think Sotto can be a player who fits around other pieces. Probably not ever going to be a star, but he's an intriguing development piece in the second round, and I think there's more upside with him than others.
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at the true upside of what Kai Sotto has to bring to the table, it's pretty exciting. I mean, looking at what he can do, potentially in the future rather than the current product he is, reason why he would fall into that second round. But that's the time where you take chances on guys. That's where you take chances on guys that maybe aren't great products now. I mean, it worked out for the LA Clippers this year. I like to bring up the example of BJ Boston, highly touted, recruit coming out of high school, struggled mightily at the collegiate level, inefficient, just did not look like a draftable prospect. But it ended up working out. Get in with the pro trainers and coaches, and honestly, he took off. Whether it was in his G League playing time or even at the NBA level, his playing time there was pretty interesting, considering that this is a guy that people wrote off for sure. But Kai Sotto hopefully gets his chance, gets some really good G League run, and then maybe can live up to that potential that we are seeing and kind of salivating over. That's kind of the risk reward. He very well could just be awful and just never see the NBA floor ever again. But I think with the projectable upside with him, you want to make sure that you're definitely taking a flyer, especially at least middle of the second round, because at the end of the day, a lot of these second round guys aren't going to make it anyway. So why not swing big?
Right. We do have one DM here from Brady Thompson as well on Twitter, and he wants to know about Jeremy Grant. He says, I've seen some people talk about the trade of Jeremy Grant to the Portland Trailblazers. If that were to happen, who do the Pistons take at 7, do you think? So it depends on who they grab at 5. Let's say they get Jaden Ivey. You probably come back with one of either Ben Mathurin, who maybe doesn't fit as well as other people would like if you already have Jaden Ivey, or Jalen Duren. I think that's the popular selection there. Jalen Duren is a very intriguing fit. Super glad to have him. If you're a Pistons fan, because you look at molding him into the franchise center. Obviously, you have Marvin Bagley there right now as well. But for me, those are the players that make the most sense at 5 and 7. If you can go Ivy and Duren, maybe Shaedon Sharpe fits into there some way. But ultimately, those are all pretty good outcomes. And shout out to Big Yanko, Jacob Corder, and also Mighty Meta Daniel for giving us follows on Twitter. You guys are the realists, so thank you so much.
Yeah, so let me go ahead and jump back to the Twitter. We have a couple more questions coming in. Also, something I want to note, we are at 188 followers. Let's hit 200 before the end of the live stream. So if you do have Twitter, have access to it, go ahead, hop on. Let's get to 200. I think that's a realistic goal for us here at Utility Sports. So we're going to continue to react to some of the questions coming in. Let me come up here with we got two from Mike here. First one, quick hitter. What if Kai Soto went to the Lakers? What's kind of the fit there?
Kai Soto to the Lakers, that's one that's been really popular. I've heard quite a bit of rumors about that. I think the Lakers would be a decent landing spot because you're looking at the issue with LA right now is they've traded all their assets. LeBron's aging, Russell Westbrook's aging, and Anthony Davis hasn't shot a basketball since April. So you're looking at this team needing a little bit of long-term help, specifically with how they're going to develop guys. And a player like Kai Soto, who is, first of all, going to sell a lot of jerseys, that's going to be good for that brand. You know, Jeannie Buss is one of the poorer NBA owners. Not that she's poor by any stretch. She's an NBA owner still. But in comparison to the others, they don't print money as much as other owners tend to print in terms of the actual business investments outside. So a Kai Soto selection would help them financially, and it would also really help them a lot when it comes to maybe developing some in-home talent down the road, because Kai Soto, maybe 3-4 years from now, becomes a reliable NBA player, something that right now on this roster, you can't say that about players 3 or 4 years from now. They only have 4 guys under contract currently.
Yeah, then the follow-up from Mike here is who's better, Jalen Duren or Mark Williams?
That's a great question. And that's going to be something that maybe defines this NBA draft. Who's better between those two players? I think Jalen Duren gets selected first. At least I would select Jalen Duren first, but I think Mark Williams is currently better. But 3-4 years from now, I would put my money on Jalen Duren. I think everything you want in a modern NBA outside of the three-point shooting is there for him. He's big, athletic, but he's not the traditional 7-footer, but that's fine because he makes up for that with his ability to move his feet. He's got great lateral mobility. He's able to contest shots back at the rim, and he's highly athletic with great concentration. One thing Austin had actually pointed out to me sometimes when we're going through film together, pointed out how many times he catches the lobs with one hand. And that level of concentration is really tough. And one thing that I hadn't quite noticed that Austin did point out to me, and that's the benefit here at Utility Sports too, of watching film with two people. Some of us notice certain things, some of us don't. And then together we can point out pretty much every single little thing about a prospect. And I feel like that really helps my evaluation. I feel like it tightens up everything we do here at Utility Sports. So for me, I would bet on Duren being better by 2026, 2027, but going into 2023, Mark Williams will be the better player.
Yeah, so we got another question here. Do you think that Johnny Davis or AJ Griffin can go to the Cavs, or maybe even Sohan? And do you think Keels can go 39 to the Cavaliers as well? He is a huge Cavs fan, so if you can kind of answer that, that would be huge.
Well, Nicholas, thanks so much for your comments. Really do appreciate them. And for Johnny Davis and AJ Griffin, I think Johnny Davis will be off the board probably by 14, as well as AJ Griffin. So that's where you get into maybe the Jeremy Sohan. I think Ochai Agbaji could potentially be in play there as well, which is a good fit onto that roster. The Cavs are really ready right now to compete and try and win. And when you look at them as an actual organization, they're really just lacking some wing depth. If Isaac Okoro can step up his play, you maybe add in a player like an Ochai Agbaji or maybe a Jeremy Sohan. That kind of really rounds out everything that you have there. And this team is ready to compete right now, as well as maintaining a really great long-term outlook. Pick 39, I would be shocked if Trevor Keels does not go in the first round. Pretty much all of my first-round mocks, I've had him go. If he goes into the second round, I think something went wrong on draft night. Keels, for me, will be a first-round selection, so bummer there. Maybe they can move back up, though, and get back into the first round.
Yeah, huge shout out to our fan base here and our community at Utility Sports. We are 2 followers away from hitting our goal of 200. Great job, guys. Way to stay active. And we got a lot more DMs to get to, so let's just get right to it. I'm going to go ahead and go in order of when I received them. One comment here from White is, why are people down on Michael Foster Jr.? If you compare his numbers per 36 to the top power forwards, he's on par with that group.
Yeah, I understand what you're looking at there. Part of the issue, though, is when you compare per 36 is a player who plays 1 minute, if he scores 2 points, his per 36 would be 72 points a game. That's the issue with per 36 is when you look at a player who's playing less minutes, they're going to have better use of those minutes because, 1, they're rested, they're not playing all the time, and 2, it's very situational to how their numbers actually translate. Now, I'm not saying Foster was playing 1 or 2 minutes a night. He was playing more substantial minutes than that, but he was kind of the back end option there for G League Ignite. I kind of look at him the same way as Isaiah Todd from last year, who was for G League Ignite. Not that they're the same player. I think they're actually quite different in terms of their skill sets, but kind of the role that they played. And I think kind of the same draft range. We saw Isaiah Todd get drafted in the second round. I think we're going to see the same thing for Foster Jr. And that's not a bad thing. Maybe you go to the right situation. Maybe you work out there. Unfortunately for Isaiah Todd last year, he got drafted to the Wizards, which means you're like the 12th forward on their depth chart. But for Foster Jr., maybe he can land somewhere else. Watch me speak it into existence here now that he'll land in Washington as well.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of great questions here, Sheldon, coming in here. Mighty Meta Daniel, where do you think Kendall Brown lands in the draft? He's easily the hardest prospect to land on a particular team because he can fit with multiple teams in his draft range. He has him as going as high as 22, but potentially as low as 40. Where do you think that range lies? And once again, where do you think at the end of the day, Kendall Brown ends up?
It's funny because as you were reading that comment, I was going to say I think he's one of the harder players to project because he fits in so many different places, like right in that 22 range again. You're looking at maybe even Denver at 21, I think would consider him. They're looking for some length. For me, with Kendall Brown, the one issue is he's very hesitant as a three-point shooter. But the hope is, he's a freshman out of college, was a high recruit, former four-star. The hope is that, hey, you get him into an NBA coaching system with some shooting coaches. You can develop this kid's shot, make him more comfortable and confident in himself. He didn't even shoot a terrible percentage from three, but they came on all wide open looks. And again, he was very hesitant, which is a red flag. But he does a lot of other things great. He's got a phenomenal wingspan, really good defensive player. I think I would be surprised if he doesn't go in the first round, just like I said with Keels. I think realistically his range for me is anywhere from 17 to 30. I think, if Houston really likes him and they want to get better defensively, they would consider Kendall Brown there. Probably don't see that happening, but I think that's kind of where the range starts for him on draft night. Minnesota could shock somebody and take him at 19. I wouldn't be surprised anywhere through there from 17 to 30 if he goes at any of those spots. If he makes it to the second round, though, I'd be shocked. And if I were running a team, I'd be trading up to 31.
We got another question here from Victor Rivera. What do you guys think about the New York Knicks moving up or moving down? This is a great question. This is very, very tough to gauge exactly what the Knicks are going to do. So, yeah, I'm kind of curious to hear your thoughts on this one.
The Knicks, there's one rumor that's really been circulating that I do think makes some sense for them to try and pursue, and that's packaging pick 11 with Julius Randle, and maybe you throw in Cam Reddish and Quentin Grimes, and you try really aggressively to move up with Sacramento to pick 4. If you can get that done, you select Jaden Ivey, you get your franchise point guard, and everything falls in line from there. You look at the combination of Ivey, Quickly, Barrett, Obi Toppin, and then maybe you try and retain Mitchell Robinson. That's your long-term starting 5, and you'd have to feel really happy with that just given their average age and what we've seen from all of those players already. I love Obi Toppin. I think Emmanuel Quickley is a really good guard, specifically when Randall's off the floor. If they can find a way to get off of Randall's contract, that's a huge win already for them. And not only doing that, but using it to move up to number 4. If that ever came to fruition, that would be huge for that team. Otherwise, I don't think that they should move down because I think at 11, you're destined to get someone decent, whether that's Johnny Davis or AJ Griffin if he slides a little bit. Maybe Jalen Duren surprisingly falls there. I think 11 is kind of the sweet spot of you're getting the back end of some of the really good top-end prospects here still. And it's funny right now, an article just came out talking about Ivy. Pistons, Pacers, Knicks, and Wizards are trying to trade with the Kings for the number 4 pick in the NBA draft, according to Adrian Wojnarowski. So kind of like what I was just talking about. Literally, the news just broke now that the Knicks are trying to move up to number 4. And that's the pick that I was, just talking about.
Yeah, great timely comment and question there as well. Now from Ludi here, you more specifically, Sheldon, had the Sixers taking Walker Kessler in your most recent mock draft. He believes not 100% sure. He's wondering why you had them taking the lesser of the needs of a backup center compared to a more glaring need of an athletic wing, in his opinion. Maybe speak to a little bit about, the fit with Walker Kessler there, and then maybe the wings that were there you weren't as, in love with, or what was the rationale there?
Yeah, well, it comes down to really evaluating fit at that point. When I look at Philadelphia, I think that backup big is the most glaring need. The fact that they were trying to play DeAndre Jordan at all in the postseason, and when Joel Embiid missed time, they started DeAndre Jordan. That in itself should be looked at as the most glaring need. Embiid has some really bad injury history, and I'm not going to overplay that here. He's been relatively healthy the last couple of seasons. He's, gone out there and competed even through some injuries. So that's a huge testament to him. But even when he is healthy, you need a center for 18 minutes a game. And Walker Kessler fits perfectly stylistically there as a drop coverage big, very similar to what Joel Embiid does. And this guy averaged 4.5 blocks a game in the SEC this past year. For reference, Duke averaged about 6 blocks a game as a team. This one prospect averaged 4.5 individually. He's also a really good rebounder. And part of the issue here is when you're in the 20s and you're looking at wings, yes, it's always fun to find a wing. If I'm Philadelphia, I'm going to go out and use my mid-level exception to try and find a wing who can actually shoot the basketball. Otherwise, you're getting into that realm of guys like Kendall Brown who are very hesitant shooters. That doesn't really fit super well around James Harden. I don't want a guy who's going to catch open and not shoot the basketball. That's where you run into some of those issues, right? If a guy like Ochai Agbaji was there, you run that pick up to the podium. That's where it makes some more sense. I think right now, Philadelphia needs to find someone who's going to actually play meaningful minutes for them. And Walker Kessler, I felt like was the most willing at that, or most ready at that selection in my most recent mock. Thanks for the question.
So the next one we have here is, do you think that the Nuggets could trade up? And if so, what are some potential trade packages that they could send out, and who would they target? Now, we had talked about this before the video about the Denver Nuggets potentially jumping the Minnesota Timberwolves. Sheldon, kind of break down that conversation we just had.
Yeah, that was a fun one, Austin. Right off camera before the stream, we were actually talking about Tim Connolly and his arrival to Minnesota. And of course, this is a unique situation because he's coming from Denver's front office, where he was evaluating prospects with the entire staff there, talking about who they could potentially draft 21st overall. And then Connolly goes over to Minnesota. They now have the 19th selection. Well, he probably has the same prospects in mind. He probably wants to add players who he views as good prospects. And the interesting thing here is Denver knows exactly who he likes and who he doesn't. If they like one of his guys and they're scared he might take him at 19, I could see Denver trying to move up from, say, 21 to 18 or 17 with either the Houston Rockets or the Chicago Bulls and jumping up right in front of Connolly to grab the guy that they want. I'd have to think a little bit more about those prospects, who they would potentially want in those deals. But I think 17, 18, definitely a possibility. 23 and 30 at best, probably, or 21 and 30, excuse me, at best, probably nets you something around maybe 15 with Charlotte, which I don't really see that as a trade destination right now for them to move down from 15.
Absolutely. 100%. I think Denver's a team to watch in terms of moving, especially with the Connolly connection, excuse me. So we're going to go ahead and keep going with it. We have a lot of questions still coming in. Miles Morales here. Thoughts on Banchero's fit with the Rockets? And also, a follow-up to that, what is the fit with Tari Eason to the Rockets? Do we like that? Do we not like that? So start with Banchero.
Banchero's fit in Houston is one of the more intriguing ones in the class because you're looking at a team that already has scoring input, right? They've got players who offensively are gifted. Jalen Green's, of course, the headliner there. KPJ, he's coming along as a guard. I'll be interested to see if they do draft a point guard or not on draft night. I think it's going to give us an indication on how Raphael Stone feels about Kevin Porter Jr. being the point guard. I wouldn't be shocked, though, if they do not take a point guard. So when you get to the actual Banchero fit, he gives you another guy who can play make to a certain extent, but most importantly can put the ball in the hole. And if you're going to build a dynamic duo of Jalen Green, Paolo Banchero, and both of them can score the basketball in different ways, which is what they can both do. Banchero's a little bit of a slower player, more methodical, and Jalen Green's going to rip the rim off the backboard every single time he goes up to dunk the basketball. I feel like it's a really fun fit. I feel like it's going to be a pretty good fit. The biggest question is, how do they guard anybody? And that's where at 17, if they do find a guy like Tari Eason, who he mentioned in that question, that's where you find some of those solutions, right? You need to complement this roster and complement your young guys with good defensive players. And then the one issue here right now, yes, none of these players that they currently have really that are big minutes guys are good defensively. They're all like 19 or 20 years old. If Usman Garuba starts playing and he starts to learn the system a little bit, I think this team can still learn. They've also still got a young head coach in Steven Silas who, has only had a few years of actual NBA coaching experience at the head coach level. If you give them some time, they can figure everything out. I do like Banchero a lot there, though, and I think Tari Eason's one of those complimentary picks that would help that team quite a bit.
Yeah, on the next one here, we have why are people so high on Jabari Smith, and why is Boncaro the least likely to be the first pick? But this guy in particular looks at it as uh, Boncaro, Chet, Jabari. So, kind of an interesting question here in terms of, let's start with, why are people high on Jabari Smith? What's that upside? What's that high ceiling that people are seeing, and you maybe more specifically are seeing?
Part of the issue with why everyone's so high on Jabari Smith is because basketball has really gotten watered down to the point of, okay, we need a star, we need a good defender, and you need 3-and-D players. That's really the way that ESPN talks about basketball. That's the way that most mainstream media talks about basketball. So when you look at a Jabari Smith who is about 6'10", can shoot the three ball at a really good clip, and is a really good defender, it sounds like that's everything you need from him. But when you get into the nuances of why he's maybe not the best player in this class, he struggles to handle the basketball, not very confident when he puts it on the deck 3 times, doesn't utilize his left hand as well as, you would probably want a number 1 overall pick to do. There's some issues as well there. Now, the thing is, he's very safe, like I talked about in the open, because at the very worst case scenario, he's going to be an elite role player who's going to shoot the 3 ball at a very good clip, and he's going to be a good defender. I think he's a better version of John Collins. That's what I've kind of likened him to quite a bit. And that's not a bad thing. I'm not trying to, water that down. He's a good player. But for me, I give preference to a Chet Holmgren because of Holmgren's all-around dynamism, his ability to actually bring the ball up the floor, do a few more things as a passer, playmaker, that I think Jabari Smith just can't do. And then Boncaro, the reason why he's not talked about as the number 1 overall pick, he's just less exciting. And when you look at it, and I'm not saying that I agree with that, but that's the kind of narrative here. And there's also some concerns about his defensive capability. Holmgren, Smith, both special defensive players. I think Boncaro lacks that. Now, does that make it the right decision? No, I think Boncaro, I keep going back and forth between Boncaro and Smith on who should be third on my big board. I like both of them. I think they're both very good players, but I could see the case on why Boncaro would be worthy of the first overall selection. In fact, I think he's going to be the best rookie out of all of the rookies going into this next year. If I had to bet, I would put my money on him being rookie of the year because he's going to score the basketball better than most. He's got a really good handle to him already. And if that defense ever comes around, which I think is a possibility, he could be a star in his own right. So I think ultimately, Boncaro is not getting the love he deserves. But at the same time, I've been mocking him third overall. I feel like that's not super disrespectful either.
Yeah, so we got a couple more here that we do want to rip through. So make sure that you are sending in some of your questions here. And Sheldon, we'll try to do a little bit of a lightning round to kind of catch up a little bit here. Fambo Zhang from G League Ignite, is he anywhere close to being drafted? And is he in this class more specifically? I believe he is.
Yeah, he is. I could see him going in the second round. Some of those G League Ignite guys are kind of hard because it comes down to, like last year, Daishin Nix was a player I thought was going to get drafted and ultimately didn't. He ended up signing on UDFA with the Houston Rockets. I think that was a pretty nice pickup for them. We haven't seen a ton of him at the NBA level quite yet, just a little bit. And I think Fanbo Zhang, the one issue too this year is there's only 28 second round selections in comparison to the normal 30. So, with the tampering rules and the actual punishments, which actually only hurts these young kids who aren't going to get drafted now, 2 of them. It's a bummer, but Fanbo Zhang, he's going to be right on the swing there. Whether he's back end of the second round or goes undrafted, that's a possibility. I do have one comment here too from White on Twitter. He asked about 2023. How much will Leonard Miller benefit from playing with Scoot Henderson next season? This is a great question. Talking about Leonard Miller, he actually decided to go to G League Ignite, which is why I wanted to bring it up now after talking about Fanbo Zhang. He was the 26th ranked prospect in his high school class. He was the number 1 4-star prospect from his class in a class that has 25 5-stars, which is incredible. He, at 26th, he was not ready for the NBA. So the fact that he withdrew his name from the NBA draft was a great decision. And I think the G League will be a very good route for him to get a bit better, improve his game. We already saw a little bit of a rework shot base at the draft combine. Hopefully he keeps getting better. I want that kid to succeed. He needs to put on a little bit of weight, though, too, and get a little bit stronger with his handle and with the ball in his hands.
Yeah, once again, we're going to keep going here as quick as we can to get you guys your comments. Quick here on Dyson Daniels and his fit to the Pelicans. Is that going to work?
That would be a pretty good fit. I talked about it with Washington. I think, New Orleans is right in that same boat. They've got the playmakers there. They've got the scorers in Ingram, Zion, and McCollum. They've got the wings there. They've got a big in Valanciunas. They just need a defensive-minded guard to make it all run and work, and Dyson Daniels would fit that really well. That's a great question.
From Pill Clinton, do you think the Spurs should prioritize a big in the draft, Jalen Duren, or a wing with some upside in Ben Mathurin or Johnny Davis?
I don't like Johnny Davis to San Antonio at all. I think they've already got a better version of that in Devin Vassell. For me, if Jalen Duren's available when I'm picking in San Antonio, I'm taking Duren. I think he's the guy. You sit him behind Jakob Poeltl for a year, and then it gives you more flexibility on what you decide you want to do with Poeltl. If you want to trade him, keep him around. Either way, Duren's going to be a star. Watch out for that kid.
Next one, dream scenario for the Thunder in the draft.
Dream scenario for OKC, it's either at 2, you take one of the forwards, or you trade down to 4, take Jaden Ivey, get some extra stuff from Sacramento, and then come back at 12 and pick Mark Williams. That team could really round out nicely, and I don't even think it's a terrible fit. Play Ivey at the 1, Shea at the 2. Josh Giddey's big enough to play the 3. In fact, he'll guard mostly small forwards. You have an intriguing combination of passing, especially if you do go with Chet Holmgren second overall. Your whole team can basically play make then. At that point, you're going to have a lot of fun basketball, and I think that team's going to be closer to competing than most people assume.
We have a hypothetical trade scenario, and this is kind of an interesting one here from Edgar. How about Denver getting back Mason Plumlee plus pick 15? Charlotte gets Monte Morris and pick 21. What's your thoughts on that potential deal?
That's not bad there. Monte Morris is definitely better than Plumlee. The issue here, though, if you're Charlotte, is do you want to move down 6 spots in the draft simply because you're getting Monte Morris? And I think the answer to that is no. Now, if you throw in pick 30 in there, that's where it makes some sense. But then at that point, does Denver want to do that? I don't think so. I think that deal is close, but I don't know if they're going to have all the right pieces to actually make something fit the way both sides really want it to. I see what they're looking for there with that one. It's close, but no cigar.
So next we have it from Zay at the Zay Show. I feel like Jaden Hardy to the Hawks at 16. What do we think about that potential fit? That's kind of interesting.
Jaden Hardy to Atlanta at 16, that kind of fits like a Travis Schlenk type of selection. He likes to go on upside. There's a lot of rumors, and the story really around Giannis was the Hawks were going to take Giannis back in his draft had he fallen a couple more spots. Of course, that didn't end up playing out the way that they wanted it to. But ultimately, I think Hardy's a real boom pick in this draft. I have him in the top 10 on my big board. I think a lot of people are sleeping on him. Yes, he struggled for G League Ignite. Most 19-year-olds do. It's his first time playing pro basketball. He'll play better going into the future. I'm 100% confident in that. And I think that Hardy's going to be a nice deal. If Atlanta takes him good, I think right now he's going to go to Minnesota at 19.
Next one. What's the lowest pick that you would trade Jeremy Grant for in a 1-for-1 trade?
The lowest pick I would trade him for, probably 13 with Charlotte or 14 with Cleveland. I would want to get a lottery pick for him, just given the value perceived around the league for him. And I know a lot of Pistons fans don't want to trade him even for pick 7. They want more than that. I think if you get pick 7, you're winning that trade. I really think that if you can get pick 7 from Portland, heck, I'll throw in Killian Hayes. You can have him. I don't even care. Give me pick 7. I'll be really happy with that. Give me Jalen Duren or Benedict Mathurin, whoever's available there. I'll build that around Cade Cunningham and be really happy with the end result. I think Jeremy Grant's a good player. He just doesn't score 20 points per game on a really good team. I think that should be obvious, but most people like to look at his numbers and say, well, he scored 20. Okay. He was also very inefficient scoring that 20.
Next one here from Adam. Does Ivy follow the Pistons after stating in an interview that he'd like to play for the Pistons - Pacers? Obviously, well noted now throughout the course of the stream that Ivy doesn't necessarily want to play for the Kings. So what do you think about Adam's question here?
That's a great question, and it makes sense. Look at Ivy in terms of his current location, Purdue, Indiana. Makes sense why he would want to play with the Pacers. That timeline works for him. He'd be a great fit next to Tyrese Halliburton. I love that. One thing that's lesser known about Jaden Ivey, his grandfather played for the Detroit Lions. He would be a phenomenal fit into Detroit's culture. He'd be a phenomenal fit next to Cade Cunningham because Cunningham can work off the ball better than most guards can. And I think those two would be such a good combination. I've been talking about those two together for 6 months on the channel now at this point. The possibility of Detroit landing Ivy has really excited me since New Year's Eve. I've loved the idea of those two players playing together. If they could pull that off and land Jaden Ivey, Detroit's going to be the winner of the draft for me. Last year, they won it taking Cade Cunningham first overall. They did the no-brainer thing. Troy Weaver made the right move. And if they get Jaden Ivey this year, watch out for Detroit basketball. They're going to be really great down the road.
Another quick question here. These are some of the people that have had their questions answered earlier. Looking at this one, should the Thunder trade up to get Shaedon Sharpe? What's your thoughts on that potential move?
Yes, they should. I was a little hesitant saying that. It depends on what they go with at 2. If let's say they take Holmgren or Banchero or Jabari Smith, one of those 3 guys ends up being in Oklahoma City, then you end up with the scenario of finishing with adding Shaedon Sharpe in there. And then you look at Shai Gilgeous probably being your guard with Josh Giddey being, the point guard, and Shaedon Sharpe kind of playing a hybrid 2-3 role, which is fine because Giddey and Shai are both so big that you can get away with that. I'm going to say one thing here. Shaedon Sharpe impressed everybody, every single executive at Kentucky practices this year. He was the best player on Kentucky's entire roster, including Ty Washington, including Oscar Tshiebwe. Shaedon Sharpe is legit. And had he waited till next year to, play college for one season, we could have been talking about him as a number 2 pick, maybe even on top of Scoot Henderson, which I know sounds crazy right now, but that was a serious possibility. And we could see him maybe just being the 3rd overall pick. I don't think he could pass Wembanyama, but we're talking about a guy who would have been selected in the top 3. If it means you have to move up to 6, 7, or 8 for OKC with the treasure trove of assets that they have, you do it. If you think Shaedon Sharpe's as legit as I do, you try and figure out a way to move up and grab him.
Another one here from Jack. This is the second question. Do you think that Ivy, obviously going to the Indiana Pacers, would allow him to really reach his full potential under the idea that he might be, slightly limited with, having the ball in his hands with Tyrese Halliburton currently being there? Do you think he can hit that full potential in Indiana?
I think Indiana's one of the best locations for him because I know Rick Carlisle. I'm a Mavericks fan myself. I watched Rick Carlisle coach for over half my life. Rick Carlisle loves the pick and roll. He loves double high drag screens. Those are all things that Jaden Ivey did not have the luxury of doing for Purdue. He gets into Indiana, gets to run a more pro-style offense with more spacing, more shooting, better roll man in Miles Turner. He is going to pop off. I think the best case scenario for Jaden Ivey is number 1, Detroit, number 2, Indiana, and then there's a huge gap between everybody else there in terms of him actually reaching his top scale.
Yeah, absolutely. Now moving on to the next one here from Big Yanko. What Ivy fit is better, playing alongside of Halliburton or Cade Cunningham? You've kind of already alluded to it, but if you were to pick one.
Could you repeat that question real quick? Sorry.
Yeah. So what is a better fit for Ivy, playing alongside of Cade or Halliburton?
I think playing next to Cade just because Cade's the better player. He's a little bit bigger and a little bit more apt to play off the ball. I think he's a good fit next to both of them. But ultimately for me, I would say just playing next to Cade because Cade is bigger, better, stronger, and I just think a little bit more reliable off the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to keep going here with B. Thompson. Thoughts on Ryan Rollins out of Toledo?
Ryan Rollins, he's a 6'4" guard. Kind of showed up a little bit more toward the combine. I know a lot of people do like him. He'll probably go in the second round, probably toward the back end, anywhere from, let's say, like pick 45 to 53 range or so. But ultimately, you're looking at a situation where wherever he goes, he's going to have to sit for a little bit. So I don't think he's going to be very impactful early in his career.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking at Mighty Meta Daniel again here, what's the likelihood that Ty Washington goes to Washington, Orlando Robinson goes to Orlando, and Caleb Houston goes to Houston, and Nikola Jovic goes to Denver?
If all of that happens,
extensive scenario there. That's so good. So appreciate the comment, Mighty Meta. That's phenomenal. I didn't even really think about that.
That would be a nightmare for us.
Yeah. Another one here. Thoughts on Kenneth Lofton Jr.? What do we like about him?
Well, he willed Team USA U19 to a gold medal. Without him on that roster, they would have finished with silver because Victor Wembanyama was destroying Team USA until a little 6'5" chubby kid in Kenneth Lofton came onto the floor and started punishing him down low. He's a very skill-oriented player. The issue for me, though, is how does he fare defensively when switched on to perimeter players? Does he have the lateral mobility to hang out in space? And then also offensively, how viable is his offensive game? He kind of reminds me of Zach Randolph in terms of his offensive arsenal, but it's going to be an uphill battle for him to see minutes and also for him to leave a real impact on the league. So for me, I'm going to sell my stock on him a little bit. Not that I don't think he can work in the league, but it's going to take a really niche situation.
Yeah, so I think, with the NBA Finals starting pretty quick here, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Want to say thanks again for coming for the whole logo reveal. Sheldon, if you want to put it on the screen one more time as we are concluding this episode. Really appreciate all the Twitter questions. You guys were just absolutely killing it. Some of you guys were asking multiple questions too. Really do appreciate that. Make sure that you are following us on the Twitter platform. At some point in time here, we're gonna get a Discord going. We want a lot of people in our community to be able to talk amongst each other. Basically, have one huge group chat. That would be the goal here. And honestly, make sure you're still active on the Twitter community, in our community posts as we're constantly pushing out content. So thanks again. Make sure you hit that subscribe button to our YouTube channel if you are new. Have a lot of NBA content, NBA draft, NBA offseason stuff moving forward. So once again, appreciate you stopping by, and we will catch you in the next Utility Sports video.